Good evening, everybody. Senator Comerford, I'm going to jump in the pool.
I need you to jump in, Rep.
We're
Domb.
running on a tight schedule. This is very exciting. I'm Mindy Domb. I'm the state rep for the 3rd Hampshire District. I represent the town of Amherst and half of the town of Granby. I want to welcome everyone. I am so privileged to co-host tonight's conversation with my state senator, the unbelievable, fearless Senator Joe Comerford, and to be here with all of you for tonight's conversation and call to action. I have much gratitude to the senator, her team, and to all of our speakers that you're going to be hearing tonight. The schedule will allow you to hear about the context of where we're at, learn not only about legislation that's going on in the state, but what you can do to support local efforts. I want you all to take a moment to look around. We don't have that long to look around, but just soak it in. There were over 430 people that have registered for tonight's briefing, which means one thing and one thing only. We are not alone. Lots of us feel very strongly about what's going on in the world and in our country, and we are here to learn about how we can act in an effective way. So thank you all for being here, and I'm going to kick it to Senator Comerford. Thank you.
Thank you, my sister. Hi, everybody. I'm Joe Comerford. For those I don't know, I represent the Hampshire Franklin Worcester District in the state Senate in partnership with Rep. Domb. And I'm also grateful to the folks who are going to be with us this evening and talk about their work and help lead us in this conversation. So here's one thing I know and one thing only about movements, is that there is nothing more effective than an informed and active and engaged electorate. There is nothing more effective. Nothing can stop someone with information and with ways to get involved. And so that's what tonight's all about. And it's going to take place in 3 parts. So we're going to buckle up, friends. The first part is context, and we're going to hear from 3 thought leaders about what's happening right now with immigration and refugees, and what's happening on the national and the state level. We're going to drop into legislation, and we are so lucky to have the lead bill sponsors with us from both the House and the Senate. And after that, we're going to take questions, and we're all going to stay on time so that we can have time for questions. And then we're going to drop into boots on the ground. These are 4 leaders who are helping us engage and helping enact the protections that immigrants and refugees need and deserve in the Western Massachusetts region. And then we're going to take questions again. And now I'm going to turn it over to Caitlin and Jesse from my team, who are going to talk about the closed captions and the ways in which we can ask questions. So over to you, you guys.
Thanks so much, Joe. Grateful to be with all of you this evening. Just want to hit a few housekeeping items at the top of this meeting. As you all are aware, this briefing is being recorded and it will be distributed to folks who are not able to join us tonight. The recording will only capture the video of the speakers, as well as the slides that are being shared on your screens. You are welcome to change your name and refrain from turning on your video if you would like to remain anonymous for this briefing. Please use the chat feature to ask any questions that you may have. Javier from the ACLU will be with us all evening and will be helping to answer questions in Spanish as needed as well. And I'll turn it over to Jesse.
Thank you, Caitlin. Buenas noches. Es un placer estar con todos ustedes. Quiero compartir algunos puntos importantes al inicio de la reunión. Este evento está siendo grabado para luego compartirlo con las personas que no pudieron asistir hoy. La grabación solo capturará el video de los presentadores y las diapositivas, los slides que se compartan. Si no quieres compartir tu información aquí, puedes cambiar tu nombre y desactivar tu cámara. Por favor, utiliza la función de chat para hacer preguntas durante el evento. Y Javier de la ACLU estará con nosotros durante toda la sesión y ayudará a responder preguntas en español si es necesario. Y también si quieres subtítulos en español, estas instrucciones están en el chat. Gracias.
All right, we can move on to the next slide, and I will be happy to go through how you are able to enable the live transcript and translated captions for this meeting as quickly as possible. You're able to find the written instructions to enable these features in the chat. But to turn on these captions, you can navigate to the Zoom meeting menu bar, either at the top or bottom of your screen, and hit the Show Captions button. Next slide, please. You will see a menu pop up. It will prompt you to select what language you would like your captions to be in. They are by default in English. To translate the captions from the default language of English, please switch the toggle by translation so that the white circle is at the right-hand side of the oval. Then next slide, please. This will bring up a white message box in the middle of your screen. Here you can select your caption language from the drop-down menu. Next slide, please. Once you have made your selection for the caption language, ensure Enable Translation is checked blue and hit Save. Translated captions should automatically appear at the bottom of the Zoom window. To turn off these captions, navigate back to the Zoom menu bar and hit Hide Captions. To adjust the color or size of these captions, click Show Captions/Hide Captions in the Zoom menu bar and select Caption Settings at the bottom of the menu. The white box will pop up on your screen and you'll be able to adjust the caption settings to what you would desire. Next slide, please. To view the full transcript of the meeting, select Show Captions/Hide Captions, then select View Full Transcript. And if you have any questions about enabling these features, please feel free to put them into the chat to hosts and co-hosts, and we will be happy to answer your questions. And I will turn it back over to Joe.
Thanks, you two. I appreciate it. And as Caitlin and Jesse said, ask questions and we'll catch you in the chat. So with that, it is my pleasure to welcome attorney Dan Berger. Dan is an immigration attorney at Green and Spiegel in Northampton and an academic fellow at Cornell Law School. And Dan was kind enough to speak with Rep. Domb and I now weeks ago about what was coming, and will benefit from a few minutes of his wisdom now. Thanks, Dan.
And thank you both for organizing this. I think it's so important to get good information out and also to come together in community. I'll give you a few top line thoughts and then very interested to hear what all the other speakers are going to be saying and what other and just share what other organizations are doing. I've been going around really since the election, talking to large groups, small groups, college campuses, and so forth. And I think the main thing that we're seeing is just uncertainty. I probably don't need to tell you this, but uncertainty, mental health experts have told me many times can be in some ways almost as hard or harder than bad news. With bad news, one can make a plan. We can basically be almost sure, if we can be sure of anything, that the next 4 years will be almost continuous uncertainty, not knowing what will come around, not knowing what new executive orders will come out, usually Friday at 5, and not knowing how much they're going to be implemented. So with that, I'll explain a few of the policies that have come out quickly, and then tell you how we're what we're seeing about the actual implementation and how we're trying to deal with it. There were a flurry of executive orders that came out of the White House. They did a lot of bad things. They took away the priorities policy that had been in place for a long time. So there were in the past, sometimes I would have a client who was undocumented who would be encountered by ICE. And ICE would say, well, you're not a priority. You have a young U.S. citizen child. You have no criminal record. Now there are no more priorities. So anybody who does encounter ICE is at risk for enforcement. We've also seen new policies about criminal issues. One of the only bills that Congress has passed is the Lake and Riley Act, which basically creates, obviously the details will have to be worked out, but it basically creates mandatory detention and increased penalties for people who have even what I would consider minor criminal issues, or even who have been accused of, let's say, shoplifting. The administration also took away the sanctuary policy, which said that ICE officials would, as a matter of policy, not go into sensitive locations such as funeral homes, churches, schools, campuses, and so forth. We have not seen that yet, but I think what it means is all bets are off in terms of the ability of ICE to do what they want to do. All of these executive orders, if you put them together, basically give a lot more authority. And now what we are going to be watching extremely carefully is to see what happens. We have not seen mass deportations. I don't think that's logistically possible, but we are seeing enforcement, and we are seeing, and I think the numbers are not necessarily that much higher than what they were before, but the mix of people who are being picked up are very different, and they do not reflect any kind of priority or policy. I do want to say, given that, which is kind of a negative beginning, that we are ready. And I think you'll see this from the other wonderful organizations that are talking. Throughout last year, private philanthropies, big foundations were meeting with immigration officials, immigration nonprofits. They were doing Trump 2.0 scenario planning. None of us wanted to be doing this, but we felt as if it was an obligation. And I can tell you that what is going to be so important is what actually happens. There are all these policies. Probably about half of them will be implemented seriously. The other half will not. We are ready. National organizations are ready to put out good information really quickly. During the first Trump administration, I felt as if we were reinventing the wheel, sometimes with interpreting policies. That's not going to happen. If something's happening and you're wondering what it means, within a day, you're going to have national organizations putting out really good FAQs, webinars, and so forth to try to share. Two more quick things, and then I will stick to my time.
Thanks, Dan. We just have to wrap up when you can.
Yep. Okay. Very quickly, then, I think just the importance of legal services and what others are doing, and I look forward to hearing from others. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for your goodwill. Everybody's on a tight time frame this evening, friends, so we can get you as much information in 90 minutes as humanly possible. And with that, I am really happy to turn it over now to Amy Grunder, who is going to talk to us about MIRA. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you so much, Senator. It's such a privilege to be here. And thank you also, Representative Domb, and everyone else, including our lead sponsors. So my name is Amy Grunder, and I am Director of State Government Affairs at the Massachusetts Immigrant and Refugee Advocacy Coalition, or MIRA. We're a statewide organization founded in 1987. We have 140 immigrant-serving member organizations across the state of Massachusetts, including immigrant-led community groups, worker centers, unions, faith organizations, and really service providers of every type. MIRA's mission is to convene, serve, and organize together with our members and allies for the advancement of all immigrants, no matter where they came from or how they got here. And I'm not sure what's in this slide, what's in this slideshow, but feel free to advance.
This is your slide. No, this is your slide, Amy.
This is my slide, but I sort of gave it to you and forgot about it. So I would just say that our work includes state and federal policy advocacy and defense, capacity building and communications with and for our members, citizenship assistance programs. Also, since 2023, MIRA runs an immigrant assistance services program that provides case management and legal services to newly arrived immigrants who are in emergency shelter. And we provide a range of education and training programs, including immigration law basics, and certainly Know Your Rights presentations for community groups, service providers, state agencies, local governments, and recently the Massachusetts State Legislature. I would say, so for my role specifically, I'm MIRA's lead advocate for state legislation, including budget legislation that promotes immigrant rights, education, inclusion, health, and safety. Our advocacy priorities are chosen each legislative session, each 2-year state session, by the votes of our 140 member organizations. And these include the 3 bills that we're discussing this evening as part of an overarching campaign called the Protecting Our Immigrant Communities campaign that was launched early this year as a response to the election. I guess I would say, do I have another minute or should I wind off?
You do have another minute.
Okay, so just about context, I guess what I would focus on, the way I'm looking at this is, the only firewalls that we have against federal overreach are the courts, obviously, which hopefully will stop the most egregious illegal actions of the administration. And then the states, including state legislatures. And then finally, local solidarity, including municipal government. And I know Javier will say more about what ACLU is doing on the municipal level. But I would add that ICE cannot, as was just suggested earlier, cannot deport 11 million people without the help of our law enforcement and our correctional facilities, which is why the Safe Communities Act and the Dignity Not Deportations bills are so important. But it's also, I would add, important to defend the protections that we do have, the protections and services that we do have for immigrants. Massachusetts law currently prevents police, courts, and correctional facilities from voluntarily holding people for pickup by ICE, as was clarified by our own Supreme Judicial Court in 2017 in a case called Commonwealth versus Lunn. And what I noted this January, there were about, you can correct me on this, but there were about 7,000 bills filed, I think. Is that about right?
Just about.
Something like that. And about 100 of them directly or tangentially related to immigrants. That was a lot. And in my rough count, 50% of those were pro-immigrant, and very concerning, 50% of those were anti-immigrant. These are bills attacking current immigrant eligibility for healthcare, education, and protections from deportation, including several attacks on the Lunn decision I just mentioned. This is something that we haven't seen in several sessions since before 2018, I would say, thanks to House and Senate leadership. And many of these bills, or a few of these bills anyway, were recently offered as amendments to recent budget bills before the state legislature, but were defeated by both the House and the Senate. So I would just say that in addition to advocating for further protections, which is a lot of why we're here today, I think it's also really important to remain vigilant and not go backwards, to ensure that the state does not go backwards.
Thank you, Amy. And for folks who are coming on this evening, tonight's about information, and we have some of the best minds in the state. We heard from Attorney Berger, you're hearing from Amy Grunder now, and we're going to turn now to Javier Luengo Garrido, and then it's about action. And then you're going to hear from policy experts and folks who are leading the work in our region. So welcome, Javier Luengo Garrido from ACLU of Massachusetts.
Thank you so much, Senator Comerford. Welcome, everybody. I see a lot of known faces. I live in Northampton, and because ACLU is a statewide organization, I see Abby Krasek. We're doing a Know Your Rights in Montague this coming weekend. Caroline Gear from the International Language Institute, Reverend Rex Vazian, Johan Rashiviga from Holyoke. So welcome, everybody. It's good to see it surrounded by incredible advocates, local advocates. We have done a ton of work, and we're going to keep doing work like that. We are working at the municipal level, passing welcoming and safe city ordinances, trying to cut the flow of information between local government and the federal government to target immigrant communities. We have passed this in Boston, Somerville, Cambridge. For Western Mass, Springfield, East Hampton, Greenfield, Northampton, Pittsfield, Amherst. We're keep working on this. I had been meeting with incredible advocates in Western Mass. I see Alice Levine, Anik Bushman, that I had met with you guys to keep working on this ordinance, to keep working and making people feel safe in the municipalities, getting engaged with the municipal work for the ACLU. At some point, probably, I'm going to put my email address on the chat. So we're doing the municipal work. Between January and February, we reached out more than 1,500 undocumented folks statewide because of the work of the Know Your Rights and anti-rape training that the ACLU has been doing across the Commonwealth, from citizens in Lynn, in Peabody, from New Bedford, Wester, Springfield, Pittsfield, North Adams. We keep doing Know Your Rights with the community. We just did a couple of Know Your Rights with Center for Americans and Laurie Millman that you're going to hear soon about. We did a beautiful training with the staff from the International Language Institute. We're doing a ton of those. If your community wants to receive training, Know Your Rights, including Know Your Rights for advocates, to be able to work with undocumented folks, we have been doing all this work through the Commonwealth. The other way that we're engaging communities is that after the coalition, the Driving Family Forward passed the driver license bill and got ratified on the ballot with Yes on 4, the ACLU with partners, we have been working extremely heavily in accessibility and working hand to hand with immigrant communities and immigrant-led organizations in the implementation and accessibility. We have run study groups in all across the Commonwealth for undocumented folks to be able to sit, to learn the driving manual so they can take the test in their own language. We have done many of those. We have one active right now in Pittsfield. We're going to restart one in the Haitian Creole in Springfield. We have done those in Peabody and Lynn also, and in New Bedford. Our work now with the community has become extremely close and really responsive to what the communities are needing right now. It is important that if you have your cell phone, take it right now. You have 3 different QR codes in your screen. For Know Your Right resources and connect with my team, you use the first one to your right. The second one is the action team. We have been training more than 300 people in family preparedness documents. So mom and dad can plan for who is going to take care of their child if they get deported. It's incredibly important. We just did a group of families in East Boston last Friday. This Thursday, we're partnering with the Parent Valley Worker Center in their headquarters in Springfield, doing family preparedness documents for undocumented families, helping them with their folders, helping them with all the documentation. If you want to be part of that, join the action team. My colleague Molly Roth and Olivia Santoro are leading that work. And after that, if you want to take action on Firewalls of Freedom, please use the QR code. We're working really heavy in different areas, including privacy and technology, to protect the Commonwealth. I want to say thank you to the champions that we have here, Senator Comerford, Senator Eldridge, Senator Gomez, Rep. Barber. You guys have been leading for years the fight and the protection for undocumented folks. What we have achieved in the Commonwealth, thanks to you, and I really appreciate that. I also want to pitch that during the first Trump administration, the ACLU created the Immigrant Protection Project that trained attorneys to do bond hearings in immigration court. Dan Berger with his law firm partners were key on that project. And thanks to those connections, we keep doing the work that we're doing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Javier. So thank you to Dan and to Amy and to Javier. This is big picture context, friends. Right now, we have the real opportunity to hear about 3 bills. And I want to thank Senator Eldridge and Representatives Cruz and Souza, Senator Gomez and Representative Barber, and again, Senator Gomez, who will talk about the second of his 2 bills. So I'm going to now start my screen share again. We're going to start first with the Safe Communities Act, and we'll hear from Representatives Cruz and Souza. And here we go, friends. And you'll note, by the way, you'll note the bill, the full bill title and the numbers. These are docket numbers now, friends. So it'll be HD, SD. Soon they will have H's and S's and new numbers. But you'll be able to find these bills and help support them, all of them, by the title. And of course, we'll help you in Western Mass. So over to you, representatives. I think if you're talking, you may be muted. Forgive me. Rep. Souza is trying to unmute. Okay. Caitlin, can you help? You are allowed. Zoom can't say. Let's just give us a second.
Oh, I think we got it.
You got it. Oh, thanks for
All
being.
right.
Thank you. Forgive that. Here you go.
Thank you so much. Representative Cruz, do you want to take the lead?
Of course, and thank you, Senator, and no worries at all on the tech issues. We all experience them. It is such an honor to be with all of you today. I want to first extend thanks for the invitation to be able to be here today to talk about the Safe Communities Act. My name is Manny Cruz, and I proudly serve as the state representative for the great city of Salem. I'm the first Afro-Indigenous state representative that our city has ever had, and I will name that all of our ancestors are immigrants. We are a nation of immigrants, and this time it is so important to remember our origins and the fact that we have always, as a Commonwealth, been a place that protects the most vulnerable amongst us, from the fight for abolition to the civil rights movement to the days that we are in now where we're fighting for reproductive justice, our immigrant communities. That is our reputation as a Commonwealth, and bills like the Safe Communities Act and the others that we will discuss today are focused on making sure that that's a reality for all of our residents. So as we think about the Safe Communities Act, this legislation, which has been filed now for the last 4 sessions, focuses on limiting the participation of state and local law enforcement officers when it comes to federal immigration, civil immigration enforcement activities. So as we move to the next slide, I'll just cover the basic 4 provisions of this legislation that are aimed at, again, providing new protections for our residents here in the Commonwealth. So ultimately, the first provision of this bill would prohibit law enforcement from asking any questions about immigration status. And the power of this is that what it will do is send a message to our immigrant communities that when they're engaging with local and state law enforcement, that they can in fact report crimes, exploitation, and ensure that they are full-fledged members of our community. The second provision of our legislation would essentially establish what is known as a Miranda warning when it comes to civil immigration enforcement by requiring ICE to providing our local and state law enforcement to provide written consent before any ICE interviews take place. This would essentially inform our immigrant communities that might find themselves in a justice proceeding what their rights are to decline an interview, and also to be able to have counsel present before they talk to a federal immigration law enforcement agency. The third provision of our bill would ensure that we would end what are known as 287G agreements. This particular type of agreement would normally allow federal agencies to enter into an agreement with state or local law enforcement to essentially deputize those resources for the purposes of civil immigration enforcement. So prohibiting these agreements altogether would ensure that these folks don't end up any local PD or state law enforcement end up in an agreement with ICE, and thus providing a force multiplier that would allow the Trump deportation agenda to proceed. And then the last provision of the bill focuses on notice by prohibiting our court officers and police officers from proactively providing notice to ICE about pending release of custody into the community. So these 4 provisions, they're very simple. They're aimed at really protecting and preserving our local and state law enforcement resources, which are already stretched. The federal government, as we've seen over the last 6 weeks, has immense resources. They can do their job on their own. We are standing on good ground with the 10th Amendment and knowing that we can preserve our resources for what they're actually needed for, which is public safety, access to justice for all, and ensuring that every single person in our Commonwealth feels comfortable picking up the phone, calling their government agencies here in the Commonwealth for the help that they need. So with that, I'll turn it over to my dear colleague, Representative Souza. We'll talk a little bit more about the impact.
Thank you, Rep. Cruz, and I'm going to unmute Rep. Souza.
Thank you so much. I do apologize to everybody for both my background and the background noise.
No.
I'm literally on a bus outside of Kansas City.
No, it's so inspirational, Rep. Souza, that you're doing this. You're fighting to be here. Thank you to you and Rep. Cruz. Thank you.
So much, Senator. It's an honor to be here. Thank you so much for inviting us. And so to add on Representative Cruz's point, this is incredibly important for a couple of reasons. My name is Priscilla. I'm a state representative. I represent 6th Middlesex District in Framingham, which is heavily immigrant based. more importantly, I myself am a former undocumented immigrant. So I understand on a very personal level the fear that so many of our immigrant brothers and sisters are feeling now. And the importance of the Safe Communities Act from the community standpoint is it fosters a healthy relationship or continues fostering a healthy relationship with law enforcement. It allows victims of domestic violence to not have to be shoved into the shadows. It allows witnesses to be able to come forward and maintain a productive relationship with our law enforcement. And to another end, it should be of interest, I think, to everyone, even our more conservative counterparts. It allows state and local resources to be done, to be dedicated to state and local businesses. We should not be doing the work of the federal government, especially when the work of the federal government has proven to be predatory. When they are hunting our immigrant community for sport, we should not be dedicating our local resources for that. So I want to thank all of you here tonight for showing up, for being allies. As an immigrant, it warms my heart, and for being in this fight with us. And I especially want to thank my profiler, especially Representative Cruz.
You are rock stars. Thank you, Rep. Souza. Thank you, Rep. Cruz. We feel you. We feel your call to action. And now we get to hear from the bill's Senate sponsor, Senator Jamie Eldridge, who's going to tell us a story about a constituent.
Great. Thank you so much, Senator Comerford. Thank you to Representative Domb for sponsoring this immigrant and refugees' rights item of actions. And I'm just so honored to be here. Proud to file this bill with Representative Souza and Representative Cruz. And you just heard them talk about the main tenets of the Safe Communities Act. And the picture that you see on the screen is a family, a constituent of mine, Lucas and Suyani Amaral, and their young daughter. And just 10 days after Donald Trump was sworn into office, the ICE came to Marlboro to look for another immigrant. And as far as we can tell, sat out on a street in the city of Marlboro and racially profiled Lucas Amaral, the husband who's in this picture, and was pulled over, in my opinion, just because of his complexion, and probably because they thought because a significant percentage of the Brazilian community in Marlboro is undocumented. And I make that point to emphasize that this is what we're trying to do with the state bill, is to make sure that police and court personnel are not doing exactly what ICE did. And so ICE did that by pulling the person over, by guessing on Lucas Amaral's immigration status. It turned out that he is undocumented, though no criminal record, and was immediately arrested and brought to the Plymouth County Jail. He was not informed of his right to hire an attorney, and that's another major part of this bill is if we were to pass the Safe Communities Act, is to make sure that police, if they happen to arrest someone who happens to be undocumented, separate from the crime they committed, they would be informed of their right to hire an attorney. Because Lucas Amaral did not know that he could hire an attorney, within about 4 days, he was transferred thousands of miles away to a terrible ICE detention facility in Texas. So we really want to put a stop to that at the state level to make sure that someone knows the right to hire an attorney. And then the last major piece related to Lucas's story is around contact between police and ICE. As Representative Cruz detailed, this would prohibit, the Safe Communities Act would prohibit police from contacting ICE if someone that they were holding was undocumented. What happened in this situation is that because there was confusion about who had actually arrested Lucas Amaral, there was mass fear in the city of Marlboro that it was the Marlboro police that arrested him and somehow handed him over to ICE. This caused the exact kind of fear that Attorney Dan Berger highlighted at the beginning of this presentation, is that this is what the Trump Vance administration is doing, is that by changing the prioritization to deport all undocumented immigrants, even though we know that's impossible, It's creating a sense of fear that just in Marlboro is causing immigrant parents not to send their kids to school, to church. The parents aren't going to work. They're not even going to the local food pantry. So this is what we want to change. While Lucas Amaral was able to get an attorney and he is back with his family in Marlboro, we want to make sure with the Safe Communities Act that state and local court personnel, state police are not engaging in the kind of activities that ICE did that disgracefully led Lucas Amaral to be detained and to be in another state for many, many weeks. So that's the details and the story of Lucas Amaral. Thank you for giving me a few moments and looking forward to answer any questions. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Senator Eldridge. So friends, let's give a big virtual cheer for Representatives Cruz and Sousa and Senator Eldridge and this beautiful, necessary bill. Remember, tonight's about information and it's about action. And there's a lot to do to make sure these bills that we're talking about become a reality. So that was a dynamic trio. We now have the opportunity to hear from a dynamic duo. And please let me welcome Senator Adam Gomez. Actually, Adam, let's do this next. Senator Adam Gomez and Representative Christine Barber, and they're going to talk about a bill they're filing, Dignity, Not Deportations. Again, the full name is an act relative to immigration detention and collaboration agreements. Remember, friends, these are docket numbers. They will change when the bill gets assigned to committee. But we will help you find them because they're going to need all of us. So over to you, friends.
Thank you so much, Joe. I want to thank all of you for being here tonight, taking the time away to be a part of this conversation. My name is Senator Adam Gomez. I represent the Hampden District here in the city of Springfield and Chicopee. I'm also grateful to also partner with the Massachusetts ACLU and my girlfriends and my good friends also here in the house that's with me, Christine Barber, and also, just wanted to say that the Dignity on Deportations Act, mass deportation plans rely on voluntary state and local collaboration. ICE officials may seek to deputize local Massachusetts officials in order to grant them federal immigration powers through so-called 287G agreements. There's similar arrangements. The 287G agreements are unique to that local officials are not compensated for their time as a federal deputies. The arrangement relies entirely on state and local officials voluntarily donating their time to ICE. The Massachusetts Department of Corrections is currently the only agency in New England with a 287G agreement. Hundreds of immigrant community members are held every day at the Plymouth County Jail, despite long-standing complaints from advocates about inhumane conditions. The sheriff recently renewed the contract with ICE, increasing the number of Massachusetts beds used for the facilities and federal department. Our Commonwealth is not required to voluntarily support ICE's ruthless federal deportation machine. Instead, Massachusetts leaders must end the existing 287G agreement and prohibit state agencies and sheriffs from signing these new agreements. This bill will prohibit Massachusetts entities. This bill also including the sheriffs from voluntarily renting the beds to ICE and prohibit Massachusetts entities from donating time and volunteering state resources to ICE by signing these contracts, such as 287G agreements. This deputizes local officials as ICE agents. So with that being said, I just want to say thank you all of you for listening, and I want to turn it over to my colleague, Representative Barber, to discuss the greater impacts and what it would have on our immigrant communities. Thank you.
Thanks, Adam Gomez, Senator Gomez. Rep. Barber.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. I'm Christine Barber, state representative. I represent Somerville and Medford. I am really grateful to be here. I especially want to thank Senator Comerford and Representative Mindy Domb, who are really amazing colleagues. For those of you in their districts, you are so lucky. They are two of our best colleagues and do incredible work. And I'm really honored to be here with so many of you who are concerned about what is going on at the federal level and what we can take action on here. Also really glad to be partnering on this bill with my friend, Senator Gomez. Senator Gomez and I were two of the lead sponsors on the Work and Family Mobility Act to help get people driver's licenses. And it is incredible to work with some of the same coalition members and partners as we continue the fight. Senator Gomez did a great job in summarizing the bill. I just want to underscore that the federal government, as has been said, they have this huge mass deportation agenda that would tear our communities apart and just be a huge infringement on our freedoms. With their massive agenda, they can't do it all on their own. And they are looking to our state officials and our state tax dollars to help them to make this happen. So with the Dignity Not Deportations Act, it is similar to Safe Communities. And I want to say that I support Safe Communities, and we are working really together to try to pass a number of pieces of legislation to make sure we're doing all we can to support immigrants in our communities and not add to ICE's power, but it's a little bit different. So the Dignity Not Deportations deals with detention, meaning prison beds for people who have not committed a crime, but are being targeted by ICE for civil immigration issues. So right now, the Plymouth County Jail has a detention agreement with ICE. So they are imprisoning people who are being detained. We know for all prisons, but especially for ICE prisons, if you build them, they will fill it. So we know that having these beds means that it is easier, and they honestly get paid by having those beds filled. So more people will be detained and placed in the beds in these sheriff's offices. We're also hearing that other sheriffs are interested in potentially working with ICE, and that is again because they get paid, they make money by having folks detained in their beds. The second piece is this 287G agreement, which is which has been mentioned before, but this is really deputizing state and local officials to be ICE officials. And it's our money, it's our tax dollars. We do not get any federal money for that. And there's no way that we should be using our tax dollars and our state resources to really go after people who are our community members and have done nothing wrong. So I hope you will support this bill. What we could really use is if you can reach out to your senator and your representative and ask them to co-sponsor the bill and build support. We really need to build support throughout the entire Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So thank you so much. Thank you for showing up and for taking action.
Thank you, Senator Gomez and Rep. Barber. We are applauding for you and very, very grateful. And I just want to go back to what Rep. Barber said, which is that tonight, Friends, is about a big tent. You know, we have two major advocacy organizations, MIRA and the ACLU, and we have reps and senators working collaboratively under what is an enormous tent for progression to protect and defend the rights of immigrants and refugees. So thanks for calling attention to that. It's super important. We're going to close out this bill with we get to hear from Senator Gomez. Oh, go ahead, Adam.
Oh, no, go right ahead.
Oh, I was just going to intro you.
Yeah.
Going to hear from the third of the bills that we're showcasing, but it's important to note that there are more than 3 bills filed to protect and defend immigrants and refugees. These are the ones that we're bringing to you this evening. And as Amy said earlier, there are an equal measure of bills that are very, very dangerous. So as much as we're leaning into the positive and what we can do, know that we're also going to be on the oppositional side to protect and defend against these bills moving forward. So please, over to you, Senator Gomez.
Thank you, Joe, once again, and big shout outs to all the legislators and everybody still here hanging on with us. All of you are so important to this movement. And I'm beyond proud to partner with MIRA and my House colleagues, Representative Rogers and Representative Moran, as the Senate sponsor of the Immigrant Legal Defense Act. Our communities are facing unprecedented challenges, and we must establish a united front to provide some of our most vulnerable residents with protections and tools they need to face the threat of detention and deportations, as we heard with what's happening with Lucas back home, that luckily he had legal representation, but there's going to be individuals that don't have that legal representation and can often make all the differences in immigration court. Detained immigrants with a lawyer are 10 times more likely to win their case than those without legal representation. And still, despite this, we're in Massachusetts, where more than half of the immigrants with pending cases are navigating these proceedings without a lawyer. Imagine that. This will secure state funding for legal services to represent Massachusetts residents, the people that call Massachusetts home, who are at risk of deportation despite their dedication and participation in communities that we all are so proud to call home. It would create a public and private funded program to provide no-cost immigration legal defense, especially those held in federal immigration detention. With a federal administration committed to the mass detention and deportation of the immigrants here in the Commonwealth, and the new Congress actively stripping away existing rights and privileges, the Commonwealth must urgently intervene to prevent the deportation of immigrants who live, work, and pay taxes here in the Commonwealth. Again, thank you so much, and I'm proud to ally and be hand in hand with all of you here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Gomez. And there are two good representatives on this bill with Senator Gomez. They couldn't be with us this evening, but before we transition to questions, please join me again in thanking Representatives Sousa, Cruz, Barber, and Senator Gomez and Senator Eldridge. They are our people inside the building, working with two great organizations. So we're going to transition now just to a moment of questions. And I will tell you the question I'm getting, and we won't be able to get to all of them, but I promise we'll answer them in written form if we don't get to all of your questions this evening. Friends, what I'm getting is, what happens now with these bills? How do I take action? How am I effective? Anyone can jump in.
Well, I would just say that, sorry, I just
No,
felt
go ahead,
compelled.
go.
I think Representative Barber hit it on the head a little earlier in her testimony. We need you to reach out to all of your state representatives and senators. And also, if you have other community members across the Commonwealth that can reach out to their senators and representatives to co-sponsor all these pieces of legislation that we just listened to. And then from there, obviously, these bills are going to be is going to be heard in their certain committees. And once we understand, when those times come, we have to come to the State House, like we stood in front of the State House just a couple of weeks ago in community with MIRA and a lot of community members in the immigrant community. So then we can show the outpouring support inside of the building, not only outside of the building, and show the legislatures and the Commonwealth that we mean business.
Beautiful.
Senator, if I could build on that point, because
yes, please, Cruz, please.
That's one side of the coin, and I think that's super urgent and important. And then I think we have to talk about organizing power. Changing this is going to happen in the ground and in communities from all corners of the Commonwealth. So I do want to say that there is a local component to this, that we do need more supports from the grassroots. And specifically, in order to turn the narrative around on this issue, we do need law enforcement, local and state, on our side, which means that we need more police chiefs, more mayors, more city councils, town meeting members, school committee, etc., saying that this bill is a priority. And in particular, I want to hone in on the police chiefs, who we've worked really hard over the last 8 years to increase our law enforcement support, local law enforcement support for this bill. Many police chiefs understand that this is an unfunded mandate from the federal government. It doesn't enhance public safety, and they want to be doing the work that they are charged to do, which is enforce the laws of our Commonwealth. And ICE is the only federal agency that in the middle of a justice proceeding zooms into a proceeding and removes somebody that may have committed a crime So this spirit of collaboration exists in law enforcement, but ICE is the only one that goes rogue in the middle of all of it. So I just wanted to name that for police chiefs, they struggle with folks that they're hoping that there will be justice and time served, and that we need our police chiefs to stand up with us and say that we need to make this shift and make clear there's a bright red line between what we do as local law enforcement in our communities and what their job is in the federal government. They have plenty of folks that they could deputize on the federal government side to be able to do this work. They don't need our local PD and our local resources to do that. So I would just name that we would ask that you go back to your local communities, take this bill, take the resources that MIRA is providing across all three of these in the ACLU, and meet with your local law enforcement and ask them to commit. And if you can't get the chief to do it, you got to go right to the mayor, to your town manager, and say, that's where the pressure has to be. We need everybody in sync. So I would just name that as another ask, is to bring more local officials on board so that we can make a compelling case that this doesn't just matter in our gateway cities or in some pockets of the Commonwealth. It matters in all 351 cities and towns.
Unbelievably important. Thank you, Rep. Cruz. Thank you. And thank you, Senator Gomez. There are numbers of questions that are.
Senator, can I also add one more
sure,
thing?
go ahead. Oh, please, Amy, please.
One thing, we are one of the
I'm sorry, Priscilla. Sorry, Rep. Sousa. I thought I didn't see who was unmuted. Thank you. Rep,
sorry, I didn't mean to jump in, but one of the things that can be done to help us is there's a lot of misinformation, dangerous misinformation around our immigrant community right now that's being used against us. It's being weaponized to dehumanize immigrants, to justify a lot of the information, and even weaponize what we are trying to do today. So knowing what these bills do and what they don't allows us to get ahead of the misinformation. We are not protecting dangerous criminals. I think between all of us legislators, we've heard everything from, even protecting child predators. None of these bills do that. We are allowing for justice to be carried out, as Representative Cruz said. In order for our local justice system at the state level to be able to function, we need the defendants to go through their due process. Unfortunately, they get taken out, and I'll use this example that was used by a law enforcement official who shared with me a couple of days ago. You take somebody who is answering for a charge and going through the court process. They show up for a pretrial hearing or something, and they are guilty. And ICE picks them up. Well, they never get convicted of that charge. They get deported and potentially cross the border and come back. We now have somebody who shouldn't be on the streets that was taken before justice could be carried out and puts the greater community in danger. So and knowing what these bills do and what they don't do allows us to get to the root of the matter and cut through all this fear, all these lies, and really all this kind of heinous rhetoric that we see from some of even our neighbors.
Incredibly important. Thank you. And of course, there's a world more to know about these bills, friends, than this evening allows, which is why we're going to send you a follow-up email with a lot of information, because knowledge is power, as Representative Sousa is saying. And there's work to be done at the state level, and then there's work to be done at home, as Representative Cruz said. So thank you. And I'm going to go to Amy for the closeout, and then we're going to move on. Thank you, Amy.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that in terms of what you can do with respect to these bills also is the MIRA Coalition. As I said, we founded this Protecting Our Immigrant Communities campaign and coalition. And there's actually, I put a connection in the website, a link in the website where you can sign up. And I think you can sign up to become a member of the coalition. You can sign up just to continue to be informed of inflection points when we do need communities to come forward and make their voices heard at the State House, for example, when there's an opportunity to participate in a hearing, for example, for one of the bills. So I just wanted to put that out there. There's a link there. And also just a little shout out. I'm just putting this in the chat now. I think you all are too far away, but MIRA does have Immigrants Day at the State House. happening this March. We're having a conference in Cambridge on the 18th, and then on the 19th, we generally get about at least 500 participants at this for Immigrants Day. We have speakers, and we also, those are followed by actual meetings with legislators that we're helping to set up with participants. And so it's an opportunity, particularly for members of the immigrant community, to talk to their legislators about their priorities. So I just wanted to put that out there also. That's it.
Thanks, Amy. And friends, we didn't get to all of your questions, but we knew that would happen because you are really a tenacious, robust group of people. So as I promised, we will take this chat and we will answer every single question in writing to the best of our ability, with our deep thanks for your engagement. Okay, for those of you who were on in the beginning, we talked about context, like what the heck is going on? And we got that from MIRA and the ACLU and Attorney Berger. So thank you, Amy, and thank you, Javier, and thank you, Dan. Then we dropped into 3 major bills that we wanted you to know about this evening, because they're 3 of the big dogs, I call them, right? The ones that we're really going to work together and support our unbelievable colleagues who took their time to talk to you this evening. And now we're going to drop down to the boots on the ground. And we, thanks to these amazing folks who live and work in our region and are leading the work. And I'm going to turn it over to Rep. Domb, who's going to facilitate this part of this evening. Again, with our thanks for the top 2/3 and all they brought to us this evening. Over to you, Mindy.
Thank you, Joe, and good evening, everybody. And thank you so much to all the speakers who preceded this part. Just such great information. And again, I want to stress how wonderful it is to be in community with everybody around these issues and working hard to learn and to act. And thank you to our colleagues from the legislature for spending the evening with us. An easy way to come to Western Massachusetts, but next time maybe in person. Now we're going to hear, as you've heard, in terms of the way the evening is structured, from local and regional programs about their work, their challenges, how they are serving our neighbors, friends, family members, coworkers, but most importantly also how we can support their efforts. And first up, we're going to be talking to 2 people from 2 different organizations that provide education and support programs. First, we'll hear from Lori Millman from the Center for New Americans, and then we'll hear from Ariana Kagan from the Pioneer Valley Workers Center. So Lori, please step up, and it's welcome, and I'm glad you could be with us tonight.
I think you may be on mute, Lori.
And thank you, everybody, for being patient with us as we mute, unmute, come in, come out.
So thank you, Senator Comerford and Rep. Domb, for organizing this. And thank you to all the legislators who are sponsoring this important legislation. Legislation for sure has made a difference for us. The Work and Family Mobility Act, which had tremendous groundswell of support, and all these legislators has taken one point of interaction away from our students and clients, right? You no longer get stopped for driving without a license. So that has removed a danger point, and that legislation works. I see so many volunteers and supporters tonight. I'm just thrilled to see the participation. This community is what makes the difference. So I had some slides, and I'm not sure whether I'm supposed to share them or you're sharing them. I can do that if it's me.
I think that we might have crunched your slide into one slide, Lori.
Okay, all right. So then I will just quickly share. We offer education, free classes in English for speakers of other languages in Northampton, like our partners at ILI do, Amherst, Greenfield, and Springfield. We work with Jewish Family Services and Catholic Charities Agency in terms of refugee resettlement and providing English classes. We help people get employment. We depend heavily on volunteers. We have an immigration legal services component. We help people apply for green cards. We have many refugees who are approaching their 1-year anniversary date. We'll be holding clinics with Western New England University Law School. We're so grateful for their participation, but we'll be holding clinics to serve so many refugees who are now eligible for green cards and so anxious to get them in the current environment, as you can imagine. We also help with citizenship. We have done hundreds of applications for temporary protected status. And when people are not eligible for that, we apply for pro se asylum. We have not really talked tonight about what an economic disaster it would be for this community for temporary protected status to be rescinded. The folks, the Haitians who were resettled in shelters in our community, were fast-tracked into employment with help from the Career Center and our staff and our classes. They are filling positions that have been vacant for a very long time. Employers are panicked about losing these people if their legal status is revoked. We have worked, as Javier said, with the ACLU to train our students and clients so they know what their rights are. We're working with the MIRA coalition, which has funded us to offer temporary protected status and pro se asylum. The people who are here are hardworking. They work more than one job, and they're filling jobs that our community needs to be filled, or they shrivel. We lose population, we lose representation. We are a nation of immigrants. That's what used to be on the USCIS website. And we appreciate all of the support. We could not do this work without you all.
Lori, I'm going to ask you to take 10 seconds and tell people what they can do to support you.
They can volunteer, although we are receiving lots of assistance from volunteers. They can make donations because we do rely on federal funding, and it's anybody's guess what's going to happen with federal funding. I'm sure all of the nonprofits on this call are living in constant fear of the next federal funding freeze and federal layoffs. And they can support this legislation because we all benefit from this legislation, and to stay informed.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you, Lori. Ariana Kagan from the Pioneer Valley Workers Center. Welcome.
Hi, thank you so much. Hi, everyone. I'm Ariana, or Ari Kagan, Associate Director of Pioneer Valley Workers Center. Just want to thank you, Senator Comerford and Representative Domb, for the invitation to join you all here today and for organizing this event. And it's a real honor to get to be here alongside leaders both in the legislature and my colleagues who are doing this work on the ground alongside of us. So Pioneer Valley Workers Center is a grassroots organization. We organize to build power with immigrant workers in Western Massachusetts. We have a membership of Spanish-speaking immigrant workers who work in agriculture, construction, restaurants, and service industries across Western Massachusetts. So these are the folks who are building infrastructure in our Commonwealth. These are the folks who are putting food on our tables. And above all, these are human beings. These are our moms, dads, parents, neighbors, loved ones. And I think it's really important to, in these moments, remember that we're talking about human beings here, not just folks who bring all the economic value to our country, but these are our loved ones and our neighbors and friends. At the Workers Center, we believe that the people closest to the issue are also closest to the solutions, and the way that we embody that at our organization is by having directly affected individuals lead at all levels of our organization and make decisions about the strategy and direction and campaigns that we take. In this very moment, our members' biggest concerns are detention, deportation, and family separation. And the way that we're responding to this moment at the Workers Center is by following the lead of our members. We are hosting regular Know Your Rights trainings with our membership. We are helping people create family preparedness plans in the event of family separation and putting together emergency folders for their families. We're helping people get their driver's licenses so that they are driving legally and reducing contact with law enforcement on the roads and therefore immigration enforcement. And we're supporting bills that address immigration enforcement, such as the Dignity Not Deportations bill. And one of the key ways in which we rely on you all in our ally community is by volunteering with us. we're building our capacity right now to bring more volunteers into our programs. I have a couple of them listed here on the slide related to our driver's licenses work, our family preparedness clinics. We also have a monthly food distribution where we bring farm fresh foods to our monthly member meetings and distribute that for free to our members. And, you know, I also can't overstate enough the importance of supporting our work right now as monthly or one-time donors. One of the most important and critical ways to be supporting and backing the immigrant worker-led movement is by helping us sustain our work throughout the year. Even as little as $1 a month really helps us go a long way to ensure that we can sustain ourselves throughout the year and in the long term. And so there are some links here on the slide that you all can follow, and I hope that they'll be sent out after this presentation as well. And just want to thank you all there are many folks on the call who have been longtime supporters of us as volunteers and as donors, and really were able to sustain the grassroots movement by having folks in our community hold that alongside us. So thank you all so much for this opportunity. It's great to be here.
Thank you so much, Ari, not only for that incredibly concise and comprehensive presentation, but also for the reminder for us that everybody will get a copy of the slides. So these links, as well as other information, will be provided. So thank you both to Lori and Ari. We're going to move to legal services, and we're going to hear from Kelly Morgan from Community Legal Aid Central West Justice Center. Welcome, Kelly.
Maybe unmute, Kelly. Let's see what the problem is.
All right, I think I'm on now, yes?
Oh,
Okay,
perfect.
great.
Welcome.
You're defying technology. It is unbelievable.
Thank you for having me here, Senator Comerford and Representative Domb. It's really wonderful to hear about this legislation and the work everyone is doing. My name is Kelly Morgan. I'm an immigration attorney at Central West Justice Center, which is a subsidiary of Community Legal Aid. We provide free legal services to low-income folks throughout Central and Western Mass in all the 5 Western counties. Our immigration unit represents community members on humanitarian cases. And there were a few things that stood out to me as I was listening to the presentations of the legislation and how much it affects the work we do. So first of all, it was brought up that you know, people don't realize this affects all of Massachusetts. And I can say from having, you know, been consulting with immigrants with legal problems, every town, like we've seen people from. Immigrants are everywhere in this state and are needing these services throughout the state. The point about how people are afraid to go to law enforcement, we work with many crime victims who are at various stages of legal processes, and the fear I've been hearing since the inauguration of people not wanting to go to court, even if they, are witnesses in very serious cases, is real. So this legislation and the message it would send to people is really important. We represent a lot of asylum seekers. We represent people in detention centers, and we consult with many people who can't get a lawyer, and there are never enough lawyers in our organization to serve the people in our service area who need this help. And I can say, representing people in detention, the resources, the time it takes when you're, meeting with people through video calls in Texas, wherever they're getting sent, when they're, kidnapped from our communities, you're trying to coordinate with their families. They're telling you the worst things that have ever happened to them in their lives while in jail through a screen is incredibly difficult, and there needs to be more work on that to provide people the care and the representation that they deserve. And as far as calls to action, I will just echo what's already been said. I think putting money into organizations, especially grassroots, small organizations that are immigrant led, is really important. Lori, you said we don't know what's happening with federal funding. I think we know. I think nothing good is happening with federal funding. So organizations all need support now, financial support. And then just really on a community-based level, connecting with your immigrant neighbors. Everyone's feeling incredibly scared right now. I'm hearing families afraid to send their kids to music class, afraid to go to school, afraid to go to work. Restaurants closed because no one shows up on a certain day because of terrible rumors. So just making sure that people in our communities know that we care, and supporting this legislation, which would make a huge difference. And I think there's so much information right now, and it's really hard to keep on top of everything. But telling people and telling our representatives that we care about this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kelly. And I appreciate you sharing how you feel people can take action on this in supporting not only your organization, but these fellow organizations, sort of like a sisterhood and a brotherhood of support. Thank you very much. Our next speaker is going to be sharing with us information about resettlement programs from the Jewish Family Services of Western Massachusetts. Sarah Bedford, welcome.
Thank you so much. And thank you for this inspiring group and leaders in the Commonwealth. I know the last speaker is not the most treasured spot, but I've had the pleasure of listening to Kelly and Lori and Ari and Senator Gomez and the whole team. So I'm treasuring the spot and the momentum. So JFS is the largest single site resettlement agency in the Commonwealth, and we have wraparound services for immigrants that intersect with other partners' work, legal services, youth services, health education, accompaniment. And I think what we're feeling right now is a few things. First, I would echo what Dan said, is that we're feeling quite ready. Ready as a community. We've seen a lot of this playbook before. Organizations like JFS have been preparing for this moment for not just the past 6 months or so, but the past year and a half. And there's certainly work to do, but this is a moment where I feel like we can lean on each other. We can lead together and meet this moment. So I think that's the first thing. The second thing is that for organizations, the impact has been more immediate, more chaotic, more destructive than anticipated. So immigrant services agencies have felt the squeeze of protections being rolled back, or said to be rolled back for different populations. We've seen funding streams that have been ripped away sooner than we might have thought, and we've been feeling that sooner than anticipated. I think the third thing is that the feelings of chaos and overwhelm and confusion are a strategy, and so pushing back against that and leaning into information is something that needs to be front of mind all the time. So in terms of how to respond, I would say three things. I would choose 3 pressure points, things that are both energizing, something that's energizing, and maybe 2 things that are draining, to lean into this moment. So first, get involved locally. You've heard from many different organizations. Jesse kindly put a link to how to get involved with Jewish Family Service in the chat. Find a neighbor, find an organization, find a way to hold out your hand literally, and feel like you're connected to somebody, because I think we're gonna lose that in all of the noise. Second is stay informed about the actions that have been mentioned here. Follow the bills as the numbers change and the names change as they're assigned to committee and other things. Don't get lost in the noise and the fuss. And Jesse also popped in a couple of links in the chat of specific ways I stay involved with refugee resettlement news, with actions alerts that come out every day. Church World Service puts out an excellent bulletin every day with new action points of ways to get involved and ways to feel heard in the federal system. And then you can look to MIRA and to our local leaders, Pioneer Valley, Worker Center, for other ways to get involved here. And I think the third thing is don't lose hope with this advocacy that we've been talking about here. Lean into making your voice heard in whatever forms feel comfortable for you, or uncomfortable for you, as the case may warrant. Show up to the town halls, call your friend who lives in another district to get their representative involved in some of these actions. We have serious leaders here on this call, and we should follow that and get into these spaces. I would say if none of this sounds energizing, find one thing that does energize you, whether it's, we had a board member come and cook a meal for the staff, and they brought something. We had another board member who had a litter of puppies come into our English classes with a group of puppies. So find a way, if you're not caring for, hopefully we're all caring for our neighbor, but if we can't get energy from showing up in these spaces, find a way to gain and build, as well as spend, because I think we need to. This is going to be a marathon, and we need to be in it for the next 2-3 months, but also the next many years, because that's what it's going to take to stand up for our neighbors, stand up for each other, and push forward and push towards progress and justice. So thank you, and thank you for the energy you've given me through showing up here with you today.
Thank you, Sarah. I just want to kind of stress the standing up for our neighbors. That's something we all can do, but I love the look for something energizing, because some of this can be very draining. But I may be especially fond of bringing puppies to a meeting. So I think I'm going to have to find myself some litters. Thank you very much for sharing that information with us. And again, everybody will be sharing slides, links, information. I see in the chat that we have someone who wanted to share information about the Franklin County People's Fund. We'll include that in the information that we provide to people, so that you can also have that resource. Senator Comerford, I don't see any other questions, but I'm not sure if I can see the questions.
I can see one that I think this group might want to talk about. And I just want to go back to what Sarah said. Friends, remember, there's nothing more powerful than an informed, engaged, and active electorate. Nothing in the world, right? Zero. And Sarah's asking us, and all the speakers tonight are asking us, to stay engaged and stay vigilant. And as an organizer, it's our job to figure out how we stay in this for the long haul, right? It's our job to go to places where we find energy, because this isn't about tomorrow. It is about years from now, where we'll all have to be tuned in, dialed in, hearts full, feeling like we can reach out to the people who are most important in our world, get that energy, and go to work for the things that matter, justice and peace. So there's a question in the chat about temporary protective status. And I see Lori Millman looking like she wants to answer, but the August deadline, especially around the Haitian community, what's the status of this? How should we be reacting to this? And maybe just do a 101, whoever wants to jump in first, around what temporary protective status is. And Lori, go ahead, take it.
Sure. So temporary protected status is a legal status that the government our government made available years ago for nationals of countries that are in crisis. So El Salvador during the Civil War, Haiti after the earthquake. It is not a pathway to citizenship or even a green card. It's temporary. It needs to be renewed every 2 years, but it enables the holder to apply for work authorization, which is what people desperately need. And temporary protected status was granted to Haitians, to Afghans, to Ukrainians, obviously, and Kelly, you know, any other legal service provider could jump in here if I'm off base. But temporary protected status was recently extended by the Biden administration for Haitians through February of 2026. So rescinding it in August is undoing something, which I guess this administration has no qualms about. But there are lawsuits now. I know that the Boston-based Lawyers for Civil Rights has filed a lawsuit with other groups challenging the legality of this. If the lawsuits fail and that status is revoked, then the people who are here without it are out of status and eligible for deportation, which means we would need to apply for asylum for them. They don't, as a rule, have great asylum claims because their country is in chaos. It's not necessarily persecuting them, which is usually the grounds for asylum. But we would apply pro se asylum. It's a tremendous amount of work to go back and reapply for all these people that we've applied for. Again, Amy from MIRA, anyone else could jump in and clarify this if I've missed something.
Friends?
Anybody?
Yeah, lots of people are going to be needing legal help. There's going to be a lot of panic. There's going to be a lot of taking advantage of vulnerable communities. There's already a lot of that going on with these populations and with the chaos and the misinformation that's ripe for fraud and exploitation. So I think
the other thing that's so sad is that so many employers, so many local employers stepped up and worked as partners with the career centers to welcome the newcomers. And they were grateful for them because they had positions that were long vacant. Greenleaf Foods in Turners Falls confessed that they had not reached full employment in 5 years. And finally, they hired 23 Haitians. They said they were the best workers they'd ever had. And now they don't know whether they can retain them. So we're burning bridges with employers that we've worked so hard to cultivate. It's so counterproductive.
Thank you, Lori. I think we're going to wrap it up unless Senator Comerford, is there something else in the chat that we should be mindful of? I want to be respectful of people's time, and we're actually on time, which is amazing. But are we good? I'm going to go
Mindy. Yeah, I was going to say, if any of our speakers wanted to offer a closing thought, and then we will wrap with our sincere thanks. It's been a long, it's been 90 minutes, but it's been what we hoped it would be, which is cracking open this world and the people leading it for the people you and I represent. So any closing comments from our speakers this evening?
Can I add something, Joe?
Please, Senator.
And I wanted to state for the whole thing, because I just so appreciate the level of organizing going on out in your district. So this is incredible. And I think what I would highlight is, that we have, I mean, I think probably most people here know it, and it's been talked about a little bit. We have been able to pass legislation for immigrants over the past few years through this massive organizing. And back in 2018, when Donald Trump was last president, because there was this level of statewide organizing, we were able to pass the Safe Communities Act on the Senate side. So, that bill and these new bills, do have a lot of support. And I think what's really changed is I think a lot of law enforcement has really realized that they don't want to be involved in enforcing immigration law as well. So I think we have a lot of solid momentum, and we're seeing, that Donald Trump is even worse than he was when he was last president. So I really think we can get, hopefully, all these bills passed. And thanks for having me, and this has been fantastic. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Senator.
Thank you.
Anyone else from our speakers? Closing words or thoughts, wisdom? Okay.
Okay, I'm jumping in.
Rep. Domb, you want to close, and then I'll close.
I'm just going to say my comments, and then you can use yours. Is that okay, Senator Comerford? Great. Well, first of all, thank you, everybody, for attending. I'm going to ask you to please share something that you've learned or been inspired by with at least 5 people. And together we'll reach over 1,000 people tonight and more in the future. And we'll expand this network of allies, supporters, and resistors. I'm really, I really am getting reassurance by the idea that a lot of these organizations are ready for this. I'm not sure I was ready for this, but I'm glad they were ready for it. But I'm also gaining such strength from being in community with everybody. And I really want to stress the most important thing that we need to do is not get isolated and stay engaged. We will keep you posted on future briefings that we do, if they happen, as well as with the slides and links, et cetera. And I'm going to ask people, if you want to, feel free to let Senator Comerford and I know how this, give us feedback on tonight. Did it meet what you were expecting? Could there have been improvements? What were they? What would you like to have seen? How are you planning on using tonight? And I'm going to put our emails in there, but I think your feedback will help us think about, so what's the part 2 to this? We're in it for the long haul too, and we want to be responsive. So thank you. Joe, I give it to you.
Thank you, Sister Mindy. So friends, this will be our close this evening. And just know that the folks we were able to share with you this evening and bring to you through this 90-minute Zoom are not the only ones doing this work. They would be the first ones saying this. So for example, ILI is on the Zoom. We are so grateful for their work in Western Massachusetts. So as Rep. Domb said, we will continue to try to be useful with you in this moment by making sure that we share with you the amazing people that are doing the work in our region, statewide and nationally. And with that, we will answer every question. We will get you every link. And we will get you the slides and the video recording and every darn thing from this evening. There are hundreds of you who have come through this evening, so I feel very heartened myself, and we wish you a very good night. Onward to a new day.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you to our speakers, our wonderful speakers and allies.
Thank you, friends.
Take care, everyone. Have a good night.
Good night.